I don't see anybody extra.
If they still got the home, there was a lot of work to do. It is time to remove.
Well, we got a bunch of people on here. I don't know. All right, Chris, you ready to have me read this off?
Yeah, you're all set.
Okay. Time being approximately 7:30 p.m., the Franklin Zoning Board of Appeals will come to order. This meeting is being recorded and televised, and a listing of matters of those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be also brought up for the discussion to the extent permitted by law. The meeting will be held via the Zoom platform. You can log in. You can get the website from the, you can go on the ZBA website and get the login, the Zoom login off of the agenda. You may also join the meeting on your smartphone by calling 1-929-205-6099. For those looking to view the meeting, it can be viewed live at this time on Comcast 9 or Verizon 29. There's also streaming directly from Franklin TV's website. Visit franklin.tv and just click on the Town Hall TV channel. I got to do a little housekeeping to begin with. Joe's here now. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Joe. We were just
Okay.
waiting. I just got it started. I was just waiting to make sure you were
That's
here
right.
before we went further.
I just set up a new computer, so I was nervous. I'm all set.
Yeah, it's got your name on it. Your phone never had your name on it. So
No.
anyway, time being approximately 7:30. 275 Washington Street, Lawrence Lavoie. Applicant is seeking to operate a doggy daycare, and a daytime kennel facility Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. The use is denied without a special permit from the ZBA. Just to introduce Joe Halligan, he's an associate member who's sitting in tonight because Janelle Lang and Megan Whitmore were unable to make it tonight. So with that being said, is the applicant present?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. If I remember correctly, last time we left off, you were going to contact the animal control, and I thought you were going to look into some insulation or whatever for noise mitigation.
I did. I met with officers Kelleher and Tadeo at the site, and went over the whole proposal. They inspected the site, and I assume that they're here at the meeting to testify to that.
I saw one name on here. Tracy was here, but then we'll get to her as soon as you finish up. Is that all you got to add?
No, as far as the insulation is concerned, the sound insulation, I checked with a structural engineer that worked on the project, and he gave me back the specs on it, which the walls are 3 inches thick with a sound transmission coefficient rating of 38 to 43. A sound transmission coefficient rating above 38 results in 90% noise reduction. The roof panels are 4 inches thick with a 50 STC rating. I did look into some baffles, which we can hang from the ceiling. They seem pretty reasonable. I hadn't intended to do that proactively, between the demising walls that are next to my space and the next building and the 1,174 feet to the mouth of Taft Street, I didn't think it would be an issue. But if it does make people feel better, and if the board pleases the board, I will go ahead and install those proactively at the beginning during construction.
Okay. Tracy, you're on the call.
Sorry. Yes, I am.
There you go. Okay. Any comments, huh?
So we went out to the site at 275. We did inspect. We decided on a little bit less than what he wanted that we would approve, which was we decided that 50 dogs. He is willing to just do small and medium-sized dogs, so that gives him more to be able to do than if he did mostly large dogs. We do inspect twice a year, so we would make sure that he was following that. I did make sure he had a sanitary station, which he is going to. I did tell him to look into certain websites for certain things to use. Obviously, if the dogs, go to the bathroom inside. He is looking into an area, because I know there were concerns that he was going to be walking the dogs on Washington Street. That is not the case.
I don't think he ever proposed that he was going to walk them on Washington Street. My recollection is he was going to walk them in the parking lot.
Yes. But my understanding is somebody told me that they wanted to walk them on Washington, which was not the case. And yeah, that was about it. We saw the space. It's a good space. As long as he follows what he's supposed to do, I have an issue with it.
Tracy, just for our own knowledge, is there a certain square footage per dog that's allowed? And if you're talking about he wanted 60 dogs or 65, you said 50, and then you said, well, he was going to do small to medium dogs. I would assume that's poundage wise.
It is. So every dog has a different size, square footage that they're supposed to have. Large dogs, we usually tend to do, 70 to 90 square feet. The medium size is like 40 to 50. And then, we're talking small dogs like Maltese, Yorkshire Terriers, things like that. We usually allow 20 to 30 square feet.
Where does the 60 pound dog fit in? You said 70 to 90 and 30 to 40 to 50. Well,
because some dogs, we can say medium-sized dogs. Some people consider that, 30 to 50. Some people consider that 50 pounds to 70 pounds. So it depends on what,
okay,
how big the dog is.
Yeah. Okay. And from a health perspective, if the dogs went out and relieved themselves on the asphalt driveway, because he didn't propose that he's going to have any woods walking paths or anything else like that, I don't see. Do you see a problem with that?
On the asphalt, I do not.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tracy. You're going to hang around in case there's any more questions that come up?
Sure.
Thank you. All right. Just so everybody knows, if you're here to object or complain, we do have we got a couple extra letters this last couple of weeks. One from Mark and Gail Lewin, 16 Wilson Road. They requested the special permit be denied. We have another one from a Mark Garlock. I think he was at 4 Taft Drive. I didn't print the second page where his address was because I didn't think it was worth a piece of paper. But anyway, he's not opposed to the business, but opposed to going into a spot where approval did not even remotely consider this kind of use of project. Okay. And then the last one that I got recently was from Alan Danello. And there are many other concerns. I agree that there are many better suited areas for doggy daycare kennel. He's opposed to it also. There's something else I was going to say too, but I'll wait until.
May I add something?
Go ahead. Mr. Lavoie.
In the last meeting, we discussed the traffic patterns going out, and I understand the concern. There was a couple of emails that I just got to look at a few minutes ago that were asking about walking dogs on Taft Street and all. We have no plans to do that whatsoever. As you mentioned, I only will keep them on the property. But the other big relief, it should be, at least to a couple of the emails, is that the no left turn going out of the property is not city enforced or city installed. It's a landlord suggestion to the construction vehicles that are leaving that property. You can take a left. I had a police officer wave me out of there going left the other day on Tuesday when I was over there. So you can take a left. And I understand the concern about turning around in the neighborhood, but it'll be completely alleviated by that fact.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there was a decision that was rendered by the planning board either. You know, if that was the case, then they'd probably have to adhere to it. Before I go to the audience and anybody else that wants to speak, I noticed that everybody says that there was during the planning board meetings that they didn't propose any uses like this, and they were only going to be for like contractors coming in the morning, picking up their equipment or the trucks and leaving, and you know, not a lot of traffic in and out. I got to tell you, I read through. At first, I had to look them up. I had to look up the meetings that went back to, I think, October of 2022. I don't think this project was approved until 2023 sometime. Never, not in the minutes that I read, and not in the decision did I see anything that restricted the use of the building to, you know, whatever. And I looked, believe me, but I didn't see any of that. So just keep that in mind when you complain about that. I don't doubt that they talked about it. I just can't find anywhere where it's a decision of the approval of the project. But with
Mr.
that being
Chairman,
said,
I believe I did find something that states it, though.
you did.
December 20th on 2021.
Okay, 21. See, I thought it was 22
The
to 23.
Walter, Shannon, and Jensen, I believe it was the lawyer for them, and it says accordingly, the use and development of the property for business, warehouse, distribute facility, manufacturing, and contract yard bays is permissible. There's also in the minutes of October 4th of 2021, the engineer specifying the primary use of the building will be for contractor type use trades. And I believe that's what he pitched to us when he came before the ZBA.
When he came before us, who pitched it? The owner of the property?
No, the engineer,
Okay.
Rick Goodrow from United.
Yeah, but I think that was for an earth removal permit. We didn't give any approvals for the building, I don't think.
I understand that, but I think he pitched it as being what it was going to be.
Okay.
Contractor.
Unfortunately, it didn't make it to the decision. So, but anyway, okay, I'll open it up to anybody. Archie, got anything else you want to say? Might as well just go through the board.
No, I mean, I guess since we also had the code enforcement agent, Mr. Gus Brown, was going to look into the statement of it being a business, if this would be considered part of the warehouse, distribute facility, manufacturing, contractor yards that was discussed, and I believe he was going to look into the use of it. Maybe yes.
Yeah, him and I discussed this, and I was going to call on him too, probably before we go to the audience.
That's fine.
Okay. Joe, any questions?
Having some familiarity with these type of businesses, I would just ask, how much is did it come down to for the square footage of the space?
It's just shy of 1,800 square feet. It's 1,760 and some change.
Okay, now do you plan on having an office in there? There's got to be a handicap bathroom put in. All that square footage is going to be taken out.
There is a front entryway which serves as an office, and there is a bathroom there that's handicap accessible. Will be built. It's due to be constructed.
And I believe they need to have a small play area in the middle of the unit so that dogs can be somewhat active and not continually caged all day. Am I correct?
Well, I won't have a single cage or kennel in that property.
Really?
In that, really, not one. I separate the dogs based on energy levels, and I'll have a movable fence. If I'm weighted to, say, a bunch that I have high energy, I'll give them a larger area and let the wall huggers and the low energy dogs kind of play in a smaller area, or vice versa.
So how do you separate all the dogs from playing with each other or jumping on each other? You have walls, you have separate rooms?
Yeah, I'll have two separate areas that will be adjusted according to the amount of dogs and the energy levels of dogs that I'll have that day, and it'll be an open space other than that in both of those areas for dogs to play with each other. Every dog coming in there will be assessed for aggressive behavior, anything like that. And when I was working at a dog daycare, we turned down quite a quite a few dogs, and a couple of them we turned down for barking, but a few of them was due to aggression. I asked the dog officers that came down what their biggest problem with dog daycare areas was, what they saw, as the most common, and they said it was not reporting dog bites. And I committed to, anytime that happens, to letting them know. It will happen, unfortunately, maybe a couple times of the year, that dogs will get into a little bit of a scrap, but we'll do everything we can to keep that from happening.
Are the bays set up with floor drains and stuff so that the floors can be washed if there's any accidents?
Yeah, there are floor drains in the floor itself. And as I said, I won't have any bays or anything like that. It'll be just a large area that I'll be able to segment off with a movable fence.
And my last question will be, are there any rear exit doors to the facility in case there was a fire or something for an emergency exit to the rear of the building?
Yes, sir, there are. I checked that first. That was one of the first things he showed me, that it has a door towards at the very back of the building, and a corridor way to get out there as we exit.
And the last question would be, is there any plans for a penned in play area outside on a grassy area anywhere during the summer months or no?
We haven't talked about that yet. It is my desire to eventually have one. If so, when the third building is constructed, it would be at the end of that building, not adjacent to the unit I'm in. And if the situation aligns the right way, we could talk about moving my unit maybe down there. I don't have any plans with that yet. The landlord still needs to construct that building. Haven't been in construction a long time myself. I know that those things sometimes slow move, especially when they start in the winter. So my plan right now is to open the space that I'm looking at, and build up some revenue and whatnot. And if the opportunity arises, then the dog officer asked me if I do go ahead with that maybe plan to notify them and you of that, and I'd get your approval before I did any of it.
All right, two last quick questions. How many employees at any given time when it's full with 50 dogs?
Well, with myself included, there would be somewhere in the range of 5 or 6.
Okay. And the last question would be hours of operation.
6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday
Okay.
through Friday. No Saturdays or weekends. I'd be cleaning on Saturdays, no doubt. But and I might run an adoption event occasionally during the year. Maybe once or twice a year there, and that would be on a Saturday. But other than that, no weekend work in there at all. No Sunday work either way.
So you're amenable to having that put on the special permit.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gus, did you find anything else about in the decision or anything?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Gus Brown, Building Commissioner. I did not. I spoke with Amy Love, the town planner, and we went through the minutes, we went through the decisions, and her answer is the same as mine. We did not find any restrictions on who could site their business there. Yes, it's industrial zoned, and it has to abide by what the industrial zones allow in our schedule of menus for different businesses that come into town. Also, I was tasked with the job of looking into whether I determined whether this was a service business or a retail business. I did consult with the town attorney, Mark Sorrell, and basically a service facility is by appointment only, is what I feel, and a retail business is something that is not by appointment only. I believe we determined that this is a service facility, not a retail facility.
Okay. Was there any hours of operation that was put in on the decision when they gave it? Because I thought I read something about 7 o'clock.
It was, Mr. Chairman, 7 o'clock start, I believe, for any business in there. And I know there was some restriction on, hi, Callie. I know there was some restrictions on, I believe Saturdays and Sundays too. I could be wrong. Callie's shaking her head. Yes, I don't have those hours in front of me, but 5 o'clock. Thanks, Callie. I do know that Rick Almeida, the owner of the property, he is on this call. I see him. He was on this call. Yep, I do see him. He and I spoke about the advertised business hours of some of the places that are going in there. And he said that even though they may advertise online, what hours they want to open at and close at, that will not matter. They will have to follow the decision of the planning board, and Rick Almeida is to see that that is done.
All set, Beth?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Almeida, you want to chime in? Is he still there?
Yes.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, there was Mr. Chairman, there was a couple of concerns on businesses that moved in and they advertised their hours, operating hours starting prior to 7 a.m. It is on their lease agreement, the operating hours of the property, and we don't check their marketing, social medias, website, their online presence. We do not check that. We do check the people on site. And it was brought to their attention after it was brought to our attention by abutters and the building commissioner. And they have, as far as I'm concerned, they have at least one of the two have already adjusted their operating hours on their online platforms. And once again, all the operating hours are on the allowed operating hours are on the business agreement, on the, I'm sorry, lease agreement.
Okay, I got another question. It's kind of playing devil's advocate. If somebody's renting a spot, obviously they're signing the lease and they might understand that you don't want them to open by 7. But do you consider a plumber or a craftsman or anybody that's in there, if they want to go in and clean their truck out at 6 o'clock in the morning, they want to clean it out and load it up, get ready to go. They're just there. Can they do that? They're not entertaining any customers because they're really not supposed to have any customers in there. They can have some, but by appointment only. If they didn't have any customers in there, can they do work in there themselves?
Was that question directed to me, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, you own the building. I'm just curious of what's in your lease.
Correct. Yes, I'm one of the owners. I would not be opposed to, and I would not have a problem with that scenario if they're in their unit. And as a business owner, as a GC, I have been to my office off hours, which is currently out of an industrial building in Hopedale. With its own operating hours, and we get in, we open the door, and I work in my office, just like people downtown Boston go into their offices on the weekends sometimes. And no, I would not be opposed to that.
Okay, I was just curious. That's all.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Gus Brown.
That's okay.
So after hearing what Mr. Almeida said, I know the neighbors would probably be concerned with any sort of activity that happens prior to that 7 o'clock hour. My only thing is that's very restrictive on a business. And obviously we need business in the town of Franklin, and we welcome business in the town of Franklin. And if it is something that turns into a major problem with this property, my recommendation is Mr. Almeida goes back to the planning board for a modification to see if he can get it. It would be a public hearing. Maybe there's other restrictions that are put on the business if someone wants to go clean their truck. I think to police that is very difficult. These people have a key to their businesses, and unless you lock that gate, and that gate can't be opened prior to 7 o'clock in the morning, I think it's going to be problematic. So I just want to say that on behalf of the residents that are very concerned about any business that goes in there. It abuts a residential zone, but I think it can work in harmony with people and the business. So I think Mr. Almeida has been receptive to everything that I've asked him and told him to do. I think some of these items have taken him by surprise, but he has not lost his cool with me any step of the way. So I commend him for that.
Let me get it out in the open. I'm not criticizing. I think that somebody that rents the building should be able to go in there anytime they want. Now, if you're restricting it to the customers coming in, that's one thing. You know, if you're running a retail or a service-oriented intended business. But, you know, if I rent a spot and I want to go there at midnight because I can't sleep, wash my truck or do something like that, as long as it wasn't making noise with a jackhammer or anything else like that, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that anyway. But, you know, sometimes people have a problem with everything. But anyway, with that being said, I'll open it up to the public. Please just let me identify who's on the call or who's got their hand up or whatever, and Casey can, and they'll let me know who it is. So if anybody wants to comment, now's the time.
I would love to comment.
Okay, could you just identify yourself, please?
Sure thing. My name is Callie Reisinger, and I'm an abutter at 1 Taft Drive.
Okay.
So I did go over our meeting with Mr. Lavoy last time, and I did have a couple of questions and concerns to bring up at this meeting. I know I spoke to Gus, and he was very helpful. But leaning on what he just said about the hours of operation, Mr. Lavoy states that the hours of operation will be 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday currently. According to the planning board minutes from December 20th, 2021, the hours of operation are from 7 to 5. I did speak to Gus about, like he mentioned, a business that's already in place that was operating at 6:30. He did inform me that they needed to stick to the 7 to 5. As mentioned, and Mr. Almeida was reached out at that point and spoke to the owners of that. So now that we're aware of that, is Mr. Lavoy aware of the hours of operation, and is he willing to change them to allow for the special permit? I'm also having concerns about the traffic, which I know we talked about in the last meeting. I went through all the zoning board meetings and agendas, as well as the previous planning board meetings and agendas that pertain to 275 Washington. Previously, it was stated that there was probably a traffic and pedestrian study done, but there was none listed in any of the notes or agendas. And because this area, specifically the area in front of my house, is the bus stop for Jefferson Elementary, Remington Middle School, Ben Franklin Charter School, and Franklin High School, of which that happens during typical drop-off time for the doggy daycare, I would like to formally request that a traffic and pedestrian analysis be done, because there would be a significant increase in traffic at that time if what Tracy is saying we're permitted to have up to 50 dogs potentially being dropped off at opening time. I did have a chance to speak to Ms. Tado at Anima Control, as well as a local owner of one of our other doggy daycares. And I did have a couple of concerns for the well-being of the animals as well. As far as the walking, while Mr. Laveau never said they would be specifically walked on Washington Street, he did mention in the previous meeting that they would be walked across the street in the open land area that's currently owned by the electric company, and then private landowners on Taft as well, and or the neighborhood, the Taft Wilson neighborhood, since he'll be walking 3 to 4 dogs on a continuous basis during operating hours. So that's a concern for increasing waste in our neighborhood and noise. And then my other question is, how will waste be collected and how often will it be removed from the site? If you have aggressive dogs, there is yet to be, until tonight, mention of aggressive dogs and dog fights. How would that be handled on the site, and how will the dogs be removed from each other during that time? Currently, there's no evacuation plan in place that we've seen. Is there going to be an evacuation plan put in place? And during that time, how will we mitigate the sound from up to 50 dogs, which is a concern to the abutters? Feces and urine that is outside, which obviously is going to be happening because he's walking dogs, and or as the dogs come in, How is that going to be handled? There's been no study of how dogs on property would impact the conservation, wetland, wildlife of the area. And as such, the Conservation Committee must have an opportunity to weigh in on this type of business coming into the Washington property, since it has not currently been done for this type of situation or business. Only light sorry. It hasn't been done for this specific type of business, which is different from the ones that are currently going in. I'm not opposed to Mr. Lavoie's business, but I am opposed to it being allowed at Washington Street, which it's not currently zoned for, which is what the residents were told that it was going to be zoned for. For all the above reasons, I ask that the zoning board deny the request for a special permit.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, Paul Garino.
Paul? Is he muted?
All right, yeah, you got the Paul Garino, 7 Terry's Way. How are you?
Good.
I just wanted to go over a couple of quick concerns, not to echo what was just said, but they mentioned drainage in the building. Where does that evacuate to? Where does that go?
Goes in a pipe and it goes into a retention area, which is probably underground. It could be, what do they call those, Joe? Those,
Like a recharger?
yeah, recharge area,
Yeah.
much the same as a septic system. Now, let me just
Perfect.
explain, because I was on the Board of Health for 25 years. I've installed septic systems. I understand how they work. When the water goes into a septic system, all water or urine or whatever mixed with water, when it's flushed down the toilet, goes into your septic system. The solids stay in the tank. The liquids go out into the leaching field. It's always been my knowledge, or what it's always been preached to me, is when that water travels at least 2 feet in a gravelly ground, like into this retention area, by the time it comes 2 feet past that, it's pure enough to drink. So, if anybody's worried about the dogs walking on the asphalt in the rain, washing it into the catch basins and into the retention area, I don't think there's going to be any health hazards with anything there, whether it be the town wells that are probably within a couple of miles or whatever. I don't think that you're going to have that. I don't think that's going to be a problem. As far as the solid waste, from my knowledge on being on the Board of Health, the proper way to pick it up would be in a bag and then bag it and put it in the trash. That's how they dispose of it. So, and I think Mr. Lavoie made those comments on the first hearing. But go ahead, Paul. You got any more questions?
Yeah, the reason for the question is I know oftentimes drainage in like a utility drain inside a shop might not go to a recharge system or be established for waste. But if it's set up that way, awesome. The intersection, I have real concerns about that intersection. Again, I'm not opposed to business in this town either. I just want to be making wise decisions. As oftentimes we seem to approve projects and then we have traffic pattern concerns after. At the initial, when this was being brought forward, this project was being brought forward, I had that same concern of that intersection not being able to handle daily business like this. And at that time it was mentioned, and whether or not it's in the notes or not, I haven't been following that closely, but I was told that at that time that there was going to be construction type businesses where there'll be like a set of people coming in the morning and then again in the afternoon, such as contractors, not like a daily flow like this is. I do have concerns for that intersection with the bus stop being right there as well. Obviously the charter school is right down the road, so we have increased there. I also know that there's a project that's been approved in the industrial park, 200, 300 yards away, that's supposed to be increasing some traffic as well. There's no sidewalks in the area. And if this is approved for these 50 dogs, is there anything that would affect, or now that we're setting a precedence, would that change the business owner from being able to expand his business in that area, or is this something that could be capped, even if it's approved at this time, capped ultimately? But like, my biggest concern is that intersection, and being able to handle that traffic. It's a real concern of mine.
Okay, Paul, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, it's Karen
Yes.
Miller. Hi,
Hi.
it's Karen Miller. Thanks so much for listening to us. And, the last meeting you read my gutter. I live across the street from the project, and I followed this project from the beginning. And whilst I agree when you read the meeting notes, some of the things aren't precisely in there, but I've actually gone back and listened to some of the meetings too and looked at my own notes. And whether, in the reason some of the things happened on this was because the presentation to the boards of what was going to be in there, it was going to be the electricians and plumbers and such. And there was a lot of discussion in your last meeting that I wasn't able to attend. I watched the recording and I heard about the traffic study and such. And I kind of sat through live as Joe, you did a little bit too in the beginning when you're on the planning board. And they talked about the traffic study and I talked about a traffic study. And they said specifically, things were said like, this is going to be the electricians, the plumbers and such. So it's going to be very few businesses that will add to the traffic, right? And that's the way it was kind of presented. So the reason the traffic studies weren't done is because of the assurance of very few vehicles. Along with it, it's the same thing you all hear me. I apologize, you heard me a lot through this project. I worried about the traffic. And Mr. Chair, you heard me worrying about the traffic when the trucks were coming and going. I worry about the traffic because there's no sidewalks on Washington Street. And so, along with what everyone said about the children and stuff, but it is people walking in the sidewalks. And so inside the project itself, I had asked the questions about sidewalks inside the project, right? How are people going to walk around inside there? And they said, that won't happen because, it's the plumbers, electricians are going to pull up to the building, maybe a car or two here. There was also been almost every meeting that they were in front of the board, parking was discussed, and Mr. Alameda would attest to that. Parking was always discussed. And in there, I know you guys mentioned having 140 parking spaces and such. Planning board was extremely concerned about the parking and didn't want too many parking spaces. And so with that being said, I think right now there's only about 50 parking spaces available right now. So if he's planning on having 50 dogs come in, assuming everyone brings one dog in, I don't know if people bring multiples, where are they going to park? How would the drop off happen? It's not set up, especially where the third building is not constructed. There's no turnaround. There's no flow that you would drive in, drop your dog off. There's certainly not parking to do that. That's not what this building was set up for. They said they expected to have parking of I don't know this exact number, but it was like 2.5 spaces per unit was what was required in this type of building that they foresaw happening, where it was, the pool pals. And if you look at the same identical type of building up on Upper Union Street, you'll see it's pool pals, it's the plumbers, it's those type of businesses where it's only 2.5 parking spaces per unit. When you start going into this location, allowing 50 dogs, even as Mr. Brown pointed out, saying that they have to come in by appointment only. So I'm going to call and say, I'm going to drop my dog off at 7. And if 40 people are dropping their dogs off at 7 o'clock, where are they going to park inside there and turn around? You know what I mean? It's not a retail location. It's not set up for that. Sorry, I think I made my point. And then finally, Mr. Lavoie, you've made a couple of comments about being, 1,000 feet away from Taft Drive, like almost like you're mocking people. I'm not 1,000 feet from the building. And in fact, my neighbor across the street, Paul, his house is 79 feet from that lot line. And that was mentioned many times during the planning board meeting because how close these residents are to this building. And as a businessman, we all love business. We shop, we work kind of thing. If you don't feel welcome to an area, you see a lot going on here. A lot of people came to this meeting, Mr. Chair, and I hope that you understand that this doesn't seem like the right location. It is in the middle of a neighborhood. And finally, during the meeting on the planning board meeting on January 24th, there was discussion talking about safety traffic. They talked about that. They talked about it comes close to not meeting the standards for pulling out of that driveway, but it did meet it. And another thing that was discussed was the tenants that was mentioned. It was discussed on the 24th, January 24th, 22, about having a limited site plan where they actually have to go in front of the board or Gus to get approved for each tenant that came in. It was discussed on that date. And then when the building was finally approved on February 22nd, the limited site plan was on the list by Amy of asking if the board wanted to approve the limited site plan. The board did discuss it, and they actually said that ultimately that the owners were to provide final lists of tenants to be provided to the board, and that they felt that the building commissioner could determine who is allowed by right and who should belong in there. And we do know the kennel is not allowed by right. That's why we're all in front of you. But whilst that isn't specifically in the minutes, Mr. Chair, it is in the meeting, and there's a little variation of that in the minutes. But if you listen or have the opportunity to listen, it is in the meeting notes. So there's a lot of the concerns that are being talked about tonight that, while it's not necessarily in the meeting notes, are definitely discussed in the meeting in front of the planning board. And this was why, right? The neighbors were worried what this would do to the neighborhood. Nobody's complaining about the plumbers or whomever's coming and going now, right? You respect the rules and we're all good. I think this goes a little bit beyond that. And, like I said, parking, pulling in and out of there, how's that even going to happen? It's not set up. It's not, I don't know if you've been down there, but it's not a place that you drive down and you can turn around and such. Appreciate you listening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, just so you know, I've actually been there. I drove down there. I turned around without effort. And, my wife
was there cars parked there?
There was nobody there. There was nobody there. It was like 7 o'clock at night. So I was probably breaking the rules by going in there after 6, but I figured that'd be a good time to look around. And my wife wanted to take a picture of the sunset. So we stopped on the road there and she got a picture through the High Line. So
Bruce, were you the one that pulled out in front of me? Somebody pulled out in front of me Friday night out of there.
Friday night, I hate to tell you, but Friday night I was in Florida, so it couldn't have been me.
We're going to check up on that.
That's fine. I'll give you my ticket. I'll give you a copy of my ticket flying home. But
appreciate it, Bruce.
Anyway, just so you know, kennels aren't allowed anywhere in Franklin by right, nowhere. Mm-hmm. But they are allowed everywhere with a special permit. So when you go through this vetting, we make a determination if it was good. And as one of the last speakers mentioned about precedent, we don't really set precedent. We approve things based upon each individual application, and we're not setting precedent with anything. Because if we were setting precedent, we'd have to approve this right away because we've already got another doggy daycare in the industrial district up off of Forge Park. So if that's a precedent that we got to approve this, then I guess it's going to get approved. But anyway, thank you. Anyone else?
If I could just say to Ms. Miller, if I give you the impression I was mocking you, I certainly wasn't. I'm listening to everyone, very even-tempered person, and I certainly wasn't mocking you, mentioning that the distance between my front door and Taft Street was 1,174 square feet.
No, it would have to be 1,170 feet or whatever. I don't know how far it is, but I know that she mentioned Paul. She mentioned to Paul, and the only Paul that spoke was Paul Garino. And I know he lives more than 79 feet away from this property. So, but anyway.
I'd like to say something.
Sure. Who are you?
Hi, John and Carmela Cook. We live at 7 Taft Drive.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi.
I just wanted to let you know that I did send a letter in opposition to this, and that was sent yesterday morning.
Yeah, I think I read them off. I don't know that I put everybody's name in there, but we do have them, and I did read 3 letters at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There isn't anything in the letter that I sent that hasn't been stated here tonight, but like what I'd like to reinforce, and Karen and Kaylee and Paul mentioned the traffic issues that are on Washington Street. We've got the charter school, Remington Jefferson, lots of buses, parents bringing kids to school. It's quite busy. And, you know, if you were out here first thing in the morning when the kids go out for the bus, you can see the traffic concerns. And others have stated that the cars have to go into this facility, come back out during a time when it's really dangerous for children. So that's my main concern. I would ask if this does get approved, that we don't allow the dogs outside in that facility, and definitely not in the neighborhood and crossing the street that, again, has no sidewalks and no crosswalk. I've seen the site plan for this facility. It's all parking. There's no space for outdoor kennels. If they're going to make space for outdoor kennels, then, you know, I think that needs to come back to the board, the zoning board, so everybody can weigh in on that.
Are you familiar with the bus routes? I know there's you got young kids, preschool. You probably got some grade school kids. You got some intermediate school kids, junior high, whatever, and then there's high school. How many different buses come and stop at that particular stop? What time of day? And how many? You know, I don't care about the afternoon because we're basically talking about the morning. But you know, whatever you tell me in the morning is probably going to be sometime in the afternoon. But what time do you, if you know, and I don't know that you know.
Mr. Chairman, you know, my kids are 30 and 28, so
okay.
I know Kaylee had just raised her hand. I'm sure she knows the bus schedule because she lives on the corner. But I know I go out of that street multiple times, sometimes during the day, and it's very difficult and hard to see when you pull out, and there's lots of traffic on that street.
Real quick, I don't want to talk out of order. Paul Garino, 7 Terry's Way.
You should know, Paul.
Yeah, it's going to change with the redistricting. So but depending on, and nothing's in stone with that either, but ultimately there may be 2 elementary times. There may be a middle school time. There's a charter school time, and then there's a high school time. What that's going to look like in a year from now is very undecided. But currently we have an elementary, middle school, a high school time, and then a charter school time. And that's
okay. So that's
both in the morning and afternoon.
4 potential stops in the morning, right? To pick up.
And
okay. What time does the first one come? Do you know?
7. What time's Mia's bus?
7:45, but the middle school starts earlier.
Yeah. So 7:45 is the elementary. So I would say it's somewhere around 7 for the middle school.
7?
I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, roughly.
Really?
I don't. Maybe if somebody else knows, I'd rather defer to them.
Okay. What about high school?
The high school.
I can see the high school maybe at 7, but not the elementary. But
I could help with that. The high school is about 6:50 a.m. and then the Tri-County also goes by there at about 7:20 a.m.
Yes.
Okay. And what about the charter school? I thought everybody drove their kids to that school.
Nope. They're just after elementary. 8:40 a.m. and then again in the afternoon.
Okay. No, I'm just getting some times in the morning, just so I know for future use, because this actual site is coming up at another meeting in 2 weeks. But anyway. Okay, was it Callie that wanted to speak?
Thank you so much. So the bus
Oh, you already
stops,
spoke.
all
You
of,
already spoke once, Callie. I'm sorry. Is there
I
anybody
was
else that
answering
has?
your question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
The bus stop is actually outside my door.
Yeah.
And I drive my daughter to school, but the middle schoolers are there. I leave at 6:55. When I leave at 6:55, the middle schoolers are out there. They're picked up between 6:55 and 7.
Yeah, that's what he
The-
said. 7. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then the high schoolers are picked up right after that at about 7:05.
Well, that's good. That eliminates. Well, he had him, and they had them at 6:50, so they're close. So around 7 o'clock, there's 2 buses there.
And Mr. Lavoy did not answer the question about his hours of operation time.
He said he wanted to go 6:30 to 6:30. He's already stated that. It's no secret. Okay.
Through the chair,
Thank you.
Go
through
ahead,
the
Joe.
chair, I have a question
Yeah.
on those hours. And I was actually involved in this when it first started, was on the planning board. And I was an advocate of always a use or reuse for a limited site plan for each tenant.
Yeah.
Tony Padula and I always enforced that. Unfortunately, we got voted out. The new board wasn't as stringent, so that did not happen. And my question is, and I don't remember if that was just a site plan or was that a special permit? When it was
Which
approved?
one?
The whole project.
Oh, I don't know if it was a special permit. I don't have a copy. I just read it online. I didn't copy it.
Well,
I
my
think it was
question would be to the chair.
It was a site plan approval.
I don't know. I don't remember. But my
Well,
question,
Joe, let me ask you a quick question. Did the previous owner come in for a site plan approval? Because I want to say something told me that it was not a limited site plan, but like a modification, site plan modification.
the original site plan on that product was for a big workout
Gymnasium, like a gymnasium. Yeah.
Greyhound buses, couple hundred
Yeah.
parking spots. That was years gone by. On this particular one, though, my question to the chair is, do we have the power as the ZBA to grant different hours than the planning board approved? Or do we just approve the use?
No, we're approving the use, and part of the use could be we set hours of operation.
But if that was a
what- yeah.
special permit, can we override that special permit with the hours? Or would that have to go back to the planning board?
I don't know. Not up for me. You should ask the zoning enforcement officer. He may know.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to answer that question.
Go ahead, Gus.
I believe it's a modification with the planning board.
To let this site go in?
Well, as far as, well, no, what the hours might be. If they want to
okay.
change the hours,
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't want to step on your toes, Mr. Chairman. But I think it would have to go for modification because that would rule, I think, in place of anything that the ZBA might come up with hours. I think they'd have to go back and maybe they do one business, but I think that just like I said in the beginning, it's going to be up to me, I think, when this is all said and done, when all the tenants are in there. I see you smiling a little bit that
Always falls on you, Gus. You're the
I
guy.
am tasked
You're the man.
with making sure that everybody lives in harmony. And with
Yeah.
this project, it's been a little bit difficult. Rick Almeida, like I said before, has been very receptive to me. I think that, between him and I, we can curb a lot of these things that might happen. Mr. Lavoy seems dead set on the 6:30. That could be something that can't happen until he
Well,
goes
he
back
just
from modification.
proposed that.
Until Rick
He
Almeida goes back from modification.
Yeah, he just proposed that, and he didn't. We're the ones that actually will set the time.
Yeah, my thing is, if the board votes tonight and it's in favor of Mr. Lavoy and he wants 6:30, I don't know that he's going to get it. He may not, and he may have to deal with the 7 o'clock start until him and Rick Almeida talk and possibly get back in front of the planning board. It's just a hunch that I have. I'm not certain.
Yeah.
Well, through the chair, didn't the owner of the property say that he has a covenant on the property that leases signed?
He
that
puts it in the
states 7
leases.
o'clock?
He puts it in the leases. He didn't say there was a covenant. He said he put it in the lease. And don't forget who we are. We're the zoning board of appeals. If there's a zoning issue that is in conflict, somebody can come here for relief. So I think that even though Gus may think it's the planning board, I think we have the right to give him the 6:30 if he request. If we saw fit to do that. That's all.
I agree with you, but the owner just said none of his tenants can operate prior to 7 o'clock. So I just don't want this to come back and be another whole dragged out if we settle it all today. If the owner's saying you can't open till 7 o'clock, even if we give him permission, he still can't do it.
Well, I haven't put it out to Mr. Lavoie yet. I think he understands. I'm sure if we asked him now, he may say, "Oh, I'll be open from 7 to 7," something. I don't. But
I just
I don't know if I don't know what the PM hour was that he could be open till, but if it had to be 7, it might be 7. I don't know.
Well, we can also put the restriction on that it doesn't start till 7.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He can't open till 7. You know what I mean? But if we were so inclined to approve it to begin with. I'm not arguing with him, but I'm just telling you that's what he requested. That's what the discussion's been about. But we'll get back to him. Anyone else? Any of the abutters want to speak anymore?
I'd like to speak.
Sure. Just identify yourself, please.
I'm Alan Danello, and I'm at 223 Washington.
Okay.
I just want to point out that it keeps kind of getting laughed at about how far away Taft Drive is, but 223 Washington Street, my residence, is actually only about 150 feet away from the bay that these dogs would be in. And I just want you to really think about for a second what it would be like to have 60 to 65 dogs in your backyard barking. Because what happens when one dog barks? The rest of them bark.
All the neighborhood dogs.
So it just starts a chain reaction. I mean, you wanted to kind of joke about Paul Garino from Taft Drive, but no, she was talking about Paul Harrington. He's 241 Washington. And he's definitely about 80 feet away from that. So it's kind of it's going to be obnoxious.
I just said just to correct you, I only said Paul because Paul was the only one that was spoken before that. So I don't know who lives in the neighborhood, but I know where Paul lives, Paul Garino, and he's not 79 feet away. So if there's another Paul that lives closer, I stand corrected. But up until this point, I don't know who lives where.
That'd be 241.
Yeah, that would be me, the other Paul.
Okay.
Of the many Pauls. I'm at 241, so I'm the one that's 79 feet away. And I can only second what everybody has really said here. I don't think I have to rehash it all. But
thank you. Thank you for that.
Said. So so I second it, and I appreciate your time on this as well.
Thank you. Alan, you all set?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say my piece too. I'm Greg Sheck. I'm at 199 Washington Street, and I'm about, I would say, 100 feet, from the dog kennel too. So I second everything everybody's been saying, and I would like this not to pass also.
Guys, just a correction here. This is Rick Almeida again. Very familiar. I know that property like the palm of my hand by now. Nobody, unless you're a tenant in there, nobody is 100 feet from unit B19. Again, unless you're a tenant right next to them. The building alone is 254 linear feet. This is the second building, and he is on the last unit, which means he is at 227 to 254. And yeah, the unit is 62 feet deep with 30 feet to the property line and another 50 feet of no man's land, we should say, between our property line and the neighbor directly behind it. So no abutters here today are 100 feet from Mr. Lavoie's, just to make that clear.
Just to clarify too, I didn't say 100, I said about 150 feet, so.
Okay, we don't have to get into feet, minutes, and inches and all that other stuff. How tall these buildings, they're pretty tall. I mean, as far as compared to a single family building, but they're down a slope. I mean, I saw there was some argument about a slope and a fence and all that other stuff. Does the peak of the roof actually go above the property line, or is it all set low at the property line?
It's above the property line.
How far?
Yeah. What is it? I don't know the specs, but I know it's far enough that, you know, I'm behind it and it blocks a lot of the view of the area beyond that, the wetland and all that.
Okay.
So.
All right. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
And I
Anyone
can see,
else?
like, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
looking out my window, I can totally see the roof of the building and probably a couple feet in the roof.
Well, you're about 100 feet higher than the building anyway. You should be able to see the roof. You should be able to look right down the chimney if they have.
I just said, no, I can see like 3 feet of the building. I'm looking out the window.
Okay. All right.
Job with the recessed lighting though.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Blake Peters. I live at 16 Taft Drive.
Okay.
And I know there was items on the soundproofing that discussed on the walls and the roof, but is the garage door soundproof for that same levels? And to reiterate Karen's comments on just the traffic turnaround, I know you went in, but you know, it's an empty lot, sure you can turn around easy, but the flow of 50 cars making U-turns within that parking lot where all the other units are going to have cars already parked in front of them. It's going to be very difficult. I think some sort of study or turnaround should be done for the property to be able to allow for that traffic to make a nice flow through there. It's just going to jam up. Everybody's going to be doing 3-point turns, and it's just going to then extend back out onto Washington Street.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how far down the parking lot's going to go, but it was somebody told me, and I think it might have been Gus, or I might have saw it on the plan. Gus, is there 176 parking spots on this property?
I
Does that
believe
sound right?
Mr. Halligan brought that up at the last hearing.
Yeah.
And I believe that is the amount.
176 spots. That's a lot of cars for three industrial buildings.
Mr. Chairman, the second building is up, and this is where Mr. Lavoy wants to go. And the third building, they are excavating for that now, so they're not quite all done with the parking. I don't know if you saw that when you drove in, but
yeah, well, I noticed that there was only 2 buildings there. You know, and
yeah,
obviously it's not finished, but they must have got a release from the planning board to utilize the 2 buildings that are there.
They've gone for the Form H.
Yeah. Okay.
They got a partial.
But I thought I saw that 176 parking spots. That's quite a few, you know, especially for.
Mr. Chair, the planning board wanted them to have 125, and they actually asked for 68 to 125 for all buildings, and they asked them to come back for each building to assess the parking because there was a lot of questions on the parking. I believe the number that they wanted to originally do was 145. Planning board thought that was excessive and thought 68 to 125, I believe, is currently 6 right now. There's only about 50 parking spaces mapped out as it currently sits right now. And that was through Rick, or one of the owners recently said something at the H, Gus, partial H, they were just went through for a week or two ago.
Partial Form H. Yeah.
Thank
so
you,
that they
sorry.
can occupy the building. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. So they just went for that for building 2 a couple weeks ago, and they talked about the parking then. And I believe right now, like it was 54 or something spaces available, and parking was a huge issue the entire time. And each time they went for an H, they have to tell them how many spaces. That's where I got the 54 right now for the 2 buildings.
Yeah, I'm sure they have to be all lined and everything too before they'll get a partial Form H. Whether the top coat's on or not, they can repaint it later. But I thought that 170. When somebody brought up the parking, I thought there was more than enough parking. I don't know what they asked for, but I saw something, and Gus kind of confirmed it, that they show 176 pages, 176 parking spots. Now I can tell you, just so you all know, all the abutters are going to be here. they're going to be before us. I don't know if you got your notices yet, but they're going to be before us in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
The owner for the earth removal permit, because we gave them one before for a certain amount of yards. They stopped when they started building buildings, probably so they could start generating some income. They got a couple of buildings up. So they're going to, from there, I guess they let the earth removal permit lapse. So they got to get a new one. So they'll be in for a new one in 2 weeks. So just so you know. So evidently there's some more earth that has to come out of there so they can finish the parking lot and maybe put the building in. But anyway, anyone else want to speak?
It's Karen Trockman. I live on 10 Terry's Way. I do have a lot of repeat concerns, so I don't want to go into them all. But a couple of my biggest ones are the safety of our school children getting on the buses, as has already been discussed. That's a huge concern. So that's number one. Number two is the excessive traffic that will definitely be resulting from this business pulling in and out of our neighborhoods, because I pull right out on Taft Drive along with most of my neighbors. And I had a question. This is a question. So it seems logical to me that the parking lot, this huge parking lot you're talking about, is not quite conducive for dog walking. They also can't, Washington Street is not conducive due to the lack of sidewalks. I feel like walking on the power lines and all that sand and all the debris isn't conducive. So I'm very worried that as much as I love dogs, upwards of 60 dogs will end up walking through our neighborhood, right down Taft, up Wilson, down Terry's. And I'm just curious, I'm hearing people saying they're not going to, but what's to stop them? What will happen? Because with all these extra dogs brings all the waste on our yards, the extra foot traffic, the extra car traffic, and safety about the dogs with young children. So what is to stop them from walking through the neighborhood? Because that seems like the most natural place for doggies to want to walk, where there's grass. You know, to me, a daycare would be where there's grass and fences and things. So how is there a way to know how the dogs wouldn't be walking through our neighborhood? And if they are, what would happen?
Well, Mr. Lavoie's already stated that he was going to walk them in the parking lot. So nobody's ever talked about Washington Street, Taft, Terry's Way, or anything else. So you know, we have to take them at that. And we could probably put if we were so inclined to approve the permit, we could make them say that we could make them stay on property, not take the dogs off property. If the traffic's as bad as you say, I wouldn't want my dog going to a doggy daycare that had to walk out across Washington Street to get over to Taft Drive or Terry's Way or anything else. I mean, they got plenty of room. You know, there's the High Lines are there. I don't know. There must be some sort of a dirt road there. I mean, people walk their dogs in the woods all the time. So, but that wasn't the presentation. The presentation is if they take the dogs out to walk, to be walking in the parking lot.
Thank you for answering that. I was also worried about the safety of the dogs, not just the children. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Hi, my name is Lauren Miller. I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I live at 4 Terry's Way, and I have a kindergartner that takes the bus to Jefferson Elementary every morning, and that bus picks up at 7:45. So obviously, as many others have stated, I have grave concerns about the safety of my daughter and the other, elementary school children who take that bus. And there's a couple, I have a 2-year-old who will be taking that bus, and I know there's another neighbor who has children. There'll be about 5 or 6 kids getting on that bus in the next couple of years, assuming that business is operating there long term. So it's a busy street as is. It's 40 miles an hour. Getting that the bus stops on Washington Street. It doesn't come into our neighborhood. And I just worry about additional cars, people rushing on the way to work with a dog in their passenger seat, trying to get into dropping them off at doggy daycare and leaving. I support the business. I think it's great to have business in Franklin. I just think it's the wrong location for the safety of our kids. And then the other concern, which was just addressed and kind of resolved it, I think, is if there were, they realized, well, 50 dogs, we can't really adequately exercise them in the space we have, so we need to walk them across Washington into the Taft Drive and Terry's Way neighborhood. If this is approved, if there could be explicit language in the approval that says the business operations must remain on the industrial zoned area and they may not, conduct business in residentially zoned area. And I think that would be all the recourse we would need if they weren't following. We would have it in writing from the approval to be able to come and resolve that issue clearly. And not that I don't believe that they, won't do what they say, but it's always better to have it in writing and the approval in case a new owner came in later or something and didn't understand the same rules. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure, Mr. Lavoie. You got enough questions now. You should be able to answer. Take a couple minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, just to reiterate, I have no plans. My liability wouldn't cover on insurance, wouldn't cover leaving the property as it is. I've never had any plans to do that. I did misspeak. I had been to the property only 3 times before the last meeting, and one of the gentlemen asked me if I was talking about over by the power lines. I meant in the direction of the power lines. I never intend to walk dogs. They're actually a Tick Haven power line areas, and I would never walk them off the property as it is. We're not exercising dogs by walking them. They're going to get their exercise in the building. We're taking them out so that they can relieve themselves. And we'll also have a station within the inside of the property for emergencies, those 2 or 3 days a year where it's just torrential rain, things like that. So other than that, it'll be all contained within the property, everything.
Okay. Is there anybody else before we wrap this up?
Yeah, can I go?
Sure. What's your name, please?
Thanks, Matt Garlock, 4 Taft Drive. I was wondering if Mr. Lavoie has addressed any of the actions from the last meeting.
Being what?
So, like the town need. There were some questions about on the permit. I'll say sufficiency of his answers. Town need, conservation.
I'm sure there was a sheet somewhere that he read off of. I don't have it in front of me now. That's usually the first thing we make the applicant do. He submitted a sheet with the application, I'm pretty sure, but I don't have it in front of me.
Right, but I'm talking about between the last meeting and this meeting.
Yeah, there wasn't any questions about what to meet the criteria for a special permit. He answered those, I'm pretty sure.
I'm Morgan, Matt's wife. I'm sitting right next to him. One of the women on the council had requested, because he did not provide any data to indicate whether there was a town need. He used the 3,200 dogs who are registered in town to suggest that there was a town need. I actually contacted all 9 dog daycares within an 8-mile radius, and every single one is accepting dogs, and one of which stated they do not turn dogs away. So he was asked to do a little research to determine whether there actually was any data to support this being a town need. So I was wondering if he had looked into this at all.
Mr. Lavoie, did you look into that at all?
Well, I made the statement based on my experience working in Hanover, where they have 5 dog daycares. At least 2 or 3 of them are on a wait list. And it's a significantly smaller dog population over there and population in general. I was more making a comment of that as far as the demographics for my decision to go in there. I also am going to run it at a lower price point than anybody in the area as well. I've looked at the rates going around here, and I'm going to actually just copy the exact template that I've been using to start this business. And I'm going to go with 28 and 38 half day, full day. And there's no one around that's under 40. There's a few that are over 50.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
No, so not done yet, quite yet. Had a couple things. Okay. So yeah, there's a couple questions on the permit about, conservation and sewer and not affecting the natural resources.
Those are basically for construction projects that go in that need a special permit, not for somebody that's going inside a building.
Okay, nevertheless, that context isn't given. So I I'm wondering if we can recommend that this go before the Conservation Board just to get their sign off to do the assessment. I mean, if there's no issue, then there shouldn't be an issue coming out of the Conservation Board.
I'm sure the Conservation Commission had their crack at this building and this project way before he came to us.
Right, but I don't think that dog daycares were part of that consideration.
And I did speak with I think the director of the conservation department, and she indicated that she would have to be formally invited to consult about this as part of the ZBA process. And she did indicate that there are some places on the property where the dogs might be walked that are conservation land. So it would be really helpful to get their perspective on whether where he's planning to walk the dogs are approved, especially during the summer. It's very dangerous to walk dogs on asphalt. And so it would be beneficial to the health of the dogs to walk them on grass. And so if that grass is in fact conservation land, it would be important to engage that committee and that group to ensure that he's in compliance with any town rules.
What he said was that if he decided to walk the dogs on grass, he'd make sure after the buildings are all built, he'd speak with the owner to see if there was an availability on the project site to walk the dogs in a penned-in area. But we're not approving that now. We're approving for the dogs inside whatever the unit is that he's going to do it at. The square footage that he presented, and then he's already said that if they might take the dogs for a walk outside to relieve themselves or whatever, and they'll do the appropriate thing. If they have to pick up any solid waste, they'll pick it up appropriately. And the town dog officer already said that the dogs urinating on the asphalt aren't a concern.
Okay. Yeah, the other concern I have on top of that is, we talk about this area and we're talking about it, in terms of like individual businesses, especially with respect to the parking and the spaces. But what's becoming apparent is that this area is becoming a lot more of a, we'll say, commercial and retail site where you have customers coming and going, not just employees. And I don't believe that that was the original intent of, I guess, getting approval for the site. It certainly wasn't considered in the original meetings that there would be, customers coming and going. So we have one business here before us talking about, up to 50 dogs. There's another health facility, gym type, they're going to have people coming and going. So I don't think it's fair to assess each one individually and say that, there's, so many parking spots and they're going to use up this allotment without considering all the other parking spots that are going to be used by businesses that come before this board or move in, as they exceed the 2 point whatever spots per unit.
Probably spots per square foot of all the total of all three buildings. That's usually how they determine. But anyway, we don't control parking. That's a planning board issue.
Yeah, and then the other part was, we've brought up the bus stops and the sidewalks. I'm wondering that if this does get approved, is there any way to make some kind of formal recommendation for whatever board it would need to go to put in a sidewalk on Washington?
That would be a petition with the town council. I would approve. I would assume they'd have to appropriate the money to do it.
Okay.
To me, it would be easier if the bus would pull in, go in one end and come out the other, in your neighborhood and pick the kids up there off of Washington Street. But, as everyone knows, when a bus comes by, the bus stops. The bus has stop signs. It's got bars that go out so that the kids can't run on, under the bus and out in the street. And I think most of the bus drivers are very vigilant about when they stop to pick up the kids, how many kids are getting on the bus, make sure that they're all seated before they take off. I mean, there's rules and regulations for everything. And I mean, Mr. Guarino would know better than me, but I'm not so sure that there's overabundance of accidents on that stretch of property. I'm not even sure if patrol it, but, you know, I just don't know. But, you know, we hear this all the time, and I understand it's a neighborhood and there's probably a lot of kids that come out to the bus. But I got to assume if it stops at Terry's Way, that the children are on Terry's Way or on the grass on the side of the road, waiting for the bus to come, while the parents are sitting in the car there waiting for the bus to come to let them get in. I don't think that they're, you know, running out in the street and playing ball waiting for the bus to come. But you know,
Mr. Hunchard, my concern there, and I agree with you. When the bus is there and it's stopping, most of the time the bus driver will take up both lanes, and we don't have too many problems then. It's with the increase in traffic pulling in and out of that intersection, and the likelihood or the increased risk of an accident at that intersection while the kids are at the bus stop, and debris flying would be my concern. I'd love if the bus stop were to be, the location were to move, like you said, into where it would make sense to do the horseshoe and come through the neighborhood and change. I already failed at that recommendation last year and the year before on that recommendation. There was a slew of reasons why the town gave me reasons why that wasn't going to happen. So obviously, if this were to be approved, we would try to address that again. But to be clear, the concern for the traffic there would be an accident at that scene with debris flying more so than the actual kids getting on the bus.
No, I can understand a car pulling out and a car coming down the hill too fast, can't stop, hits it, and careens over the tap truck. I understand the principles.
Yeah, just got you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, just wanted to close by.
Who's this again?
This is still Matt.
Okay.
By just really recommending that we consider the whole context of this space as as you know, the board approves some of these appeals, that it's going to be a sum of all these decisions, and if these decisions get made on top of one another, you end up with a space that may not have been approved originally. All done.
Is that it? You all set, Matt?
Yep, all done.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to go back to the board now. Joe, any comments or questions?
Does anybody have an idea how long that parcel's been in zoned industrial?
Probably forever.
I'm just curious.
I know why, Joe. So, Joe, there used to be the train used to go through there. And so, like, when Al Dinello grew up right here, there used to be a pig slaughterhouse down there that the train would pick up the pig slaughterhouse stuff. So when they were working on the zone, and that's why that funky little parcel there is industrial in the middle of the residential neighborhood, is it was the old railroad bed with the pig slaughter.
If I can recall, I believe the houses prior to that, not too long ago, were also zoned industrial, but the town rezoned them residential. I can slightly remember that, maybe about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, they were, because I'm at 199 and my property used to be zoned industrial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, why
Because
would they do that?
it's split from the other industrial zone because of the water and when they built 495 and stuff. So when you look at it on a map, it looks like this huge industrial zone there, when in fact that's Grove Street that you're kind of seeing, and it just is really plugged in the middle of residential area.
Well, if you continue up Washington Street headed towards King, that's all industrial on the right-hand side. You might have Greens Pond there or whatever, but it's all industrial. You got an industrial park right over there that they're talking about redoing into tearing down what's there and building something else. Although they just went and said they need an extension on it because the economy's changing. They can't get it done right now. They might just put somebody in there to rent some of the space that they already have. But, that whole thing, like you said, Grove Street, all the way down to the DPW barn, the old plastic factory on the side of the tracks, going up towards town, all that was zoned industrial. So, we didn't zone it. It was done a long time ago.
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, one quick thing. There is other bus stops too right here before Taft. So there's several other bus stops in that same area.
Well, that's actually a good thing because that'll slow the traffic down. They'll all be waiting behind the bus to go. It's not like they're going 100 miles an hour. And I don't think there's too many people that pass the buses on Washington Street. They could, but I doubt that happens. So it's just like red lights. Nobody wants more red lights, but they actually make the traffic move smoother because everybody knows that they got to wait for that light. If you go a certain speed, you get through the next light, and it's just a chain of events that just keeps you going. But you all set, Joe?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, Archie.
One last thing on the parking, though, if we could. You said you don't approve.
This isn't a parking issue.
Well, you don't approve parking, you said, but I think they should be required to go back to planning to make sure they're on board with what new volumes of cars are going to be coming to this site. So before you approve this, you should probably get their understanding that planning board is on board with allowing this much additional traffic in this facility.
Okay.
And I didn't get an answer on whether the door is soundproofed, but
the door, well, we haven't got back to Mr. Lavoie yet, I don't think, but we will. Archie, any questions or comments?
So it's my understanding that a third building is now being built. I'm looking at the
soon to be constructed. Yeah, soon to be constructed.
Looking at the satellite photo here, that third building is going to be, end of it'll be pretty damn close to 495 at that point. I mean, is there any consideration of him holding off and moving into the third building and the end bays there as opposed to being in the middle building when all said and done?
Mr. Lavoie?
Not currently, sir, and I'm not sure that we're even going to make that move. I just offered it up, and I probably should have just shut up, as I've been told by a few people in my family occasionally. I probably shouldn't have brought that up, but I just trying to be completely an open book with people and say that we may down the road, as I mentioned to the Officer Tadeo, as I mentioned that we may go for a permit down there, and she said, well, you'll obviously go through me and the board before you do that, and I said yes, obviously. So currently, I'm planning to, with the board's granting of a special permit, I'm currently just planning to do what the proposed idea was, to go into the B9 space and operate out of there.
Well, we got you on the hook here. What is the door insulated or soundproof? The overhead door, I get the overhead door.
When he hit me with that question, I really didn't know the answer, and I was hoping to defer to Mr. Almeida. I know he does know a lot of that info.
Mr. Almeida still on the call?
Yes, sir. To reply to that, all the building envelopes in the Northeast require some level of thermal, and with that thermal barrier, it comes obviously a sound barrier. So the overhead doors, the warehouse doors, they do have, they are insulated because it's required by the building code, but for the thermal purpose. And with that thermal, just like you insulate your house to keep you warm and to keep you cool, comes a certain level of sound insulation, sound attenuation.
Okay. Mr. Lavoie, do you see the garage door being open during business hours?
No, sir. I did consider maybe a screen on that door eventually. But I don't think that will happen. I hadn't been through this meeting and the concerns on that. Sorry about my batteries dying here. I'm just trying to plug in. But with the concerns that I've seen, I wouldn't want to do anything that would cause a noise issue down there or intrude on the neighbors.
So my comment, I guess, by rights, an auto mechanic can move into this place, and I understand the concern for the dogs barking, but an auto mechanic could take up 2 bays and he could be rattling off on his impact wrench all day and probably be making more noise than the dog is. I'm sure that the auto body place that's right across from this area as well, or Taft Drive, he's got to be making some noise as well. I don't know that the decibel level on that is going to be any lower than, let's say, a dog barking. So I'm torn on concern for noise.
A typical dog bark is 40 to 60 decibels. As I stated in the first meeting, I've worked in dog daycare. We hardly have any barking. They'll stir occasionally and they will bark occasionally, but I have no intention to stand in a room with barking dogs. You can imagine if, you're concerned about it a good distance away, what it would be like to stand there all day and listen to that. And you can't do it. And a relaxed dog, and that's my goal in running this place, is a dog that won't bark. A confined dog, which is conducive to a kennel environment, they will bark because it's a kennel by definition is a small space for a dog or a cat, and generally when they're in there, they're not relaxed. And our whole goal is to relax and exercise the animals within the interior of the property and bring them out to relieve themselves every couple of hours.
And as far as area, have you looked at other areas that are less impacted, where there's less impact on a residential area?
I'm sorry,
industrial. Have you looked around?
Yeah, I've looked everywhere. I moved to Franklin. I sold my house 2 years ago, but I moved to Franklin from Melrose to begin this project.
I don't have any further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Gus, anything you want to add?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I don't. I know the neighbors are concerned, and there's a business that wants to open, and it's a tough decision for everybody. That's all I have to say.
Through the chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Being familiar with these operations, I do know that if a stranger walks into one of these, one dog starts barking, and you do get the whole place going crazy for a minute, and then it calms down. So if this was to possibly go through with a vote, I would like to see a condition that the front door would remain closed, especially during the summer hours. It can be a little noisy for a minute here and there, but when the doors are closed like that, you can't hear the dogs inside.
Okay. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Anyone else?
I got something.
Yeah.
I would ask that I'm Lon Reisinger of 1 Taft Drive and a butter. And I would ask that we get the Conservation Committee involved in this, because we're introducing many animals which are predators. I mean, they're not going to be hunting, obviously, but just their presence in the area can impact wildlife in the and we've got also, you've got them defecating in this parking lot, and he says he's going to pick it up, but if he doesn't, then you could have runoff into this conservation area, which would be damaging for wildlife too.
Just knowing how drainage is approved and parking lots are approved, I doubt that there's any runoff going to go directly from the parking lot into the. I'm sure there's curbs around it. I'm sure there's curbs around it to take it to catch basins to take it into a leaching area.
And so you talked about earlier the impact on wells and water supply.
I said there probably would be none, because after the urine that's washed into the catch basins and into the leaching system, in my experience with being on the Board of Health for 25 years, that water, when it comes out of the gravel area where it's leached into, the water's pure enough to drink. At least that's what I've been told over years.
And the solid waste wouldn't be going in there?
No.
Okay.
If there was some solid waste that a dog did, and if the attendant didn't pick it up right away, and we had a monsoon rainstorm come by and just happened to wash that into the catch basin, it's more liable to float in the catch basin than go into the leaching area. Until it's like your septic tank. You put solids into it, they float a while until the bacteria eats them up, they sink to the bottom. I don't know what they did with how they approved the drainage system there, but most of them have not caps on them, but they got elbows on them that go down into the water, so that any solids that are floating will sink to the bottom, and that water level goes into the elbow, and the water level comes out till it reaches the pipe inside, and that water is the water that runs out. So It's like if you look in your septic tank after you've been using it for a while, the septic tank is always full, or at least up to the outflow pipe. So it may look, you may pull it up and say, oh, geez, it's full. But that's how it operates. You know, a lot of people don't know that. And when it goes out the outflow, it's the water, the fluids that go into the leaching system that get dispersed.
And that's for inside though, right? What about the outside?
No, I'm just telling you how a septic system works. And,
Well,
the
right.
drainage system works basically the same way. That's why they have the hoods on the catch basins. They go down into the water so that the solids, or like if there's a spill in the thing, you know, the gas and the oil is going to stay on the top of the water for a while. So if they have somebody to come to remediate it, it's going to take a while before it gets into the leaching system. You know, it's going to stay up until the water level, until it floats down below that. That's why they have grease traps.
Are out open, right? So like you could have a problem with the smell of this many dogs defecating there every day and it accumulating in the catch basin in the neighborhood.
I don't think he said that he's going to take the dogs out to relieve themselves and to give them a walk. They may tend to relieve themselves there. A lot of dogs are trained on, doggy pads. A lot of them go on the pads. They just roll the pads up, they put them in a plastic bag, and they put them in the rubbish. That's how you dispose of that stuff.
Okay, but there's still the issue of the presence of predators affecting wildlife in the area. Just we have migratory birds and native species. I don't know. Maybe we should have the committee look into that.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Done? Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for your comments. All right. If there's nothing else to be heard before the board, I'll either entertain a motion to continue the public hearing or to close the public hearing or whatever you want to do.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none, the vote will come to close the public hearing. Roll call vote. Joe?
Yes.
Archie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. We can either continue till the next meeting, or we can to take the vote, or we can take a vote tonight. We have time because it's a special permit. Once we close the public hearing, we get 90 days to make a decision.
Make a motion to
next meeting.
Yep, I was gonna make a motion to continue to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Motion
second.
made and
Second it.
motion made and seconded to continue until the next meeting. Deliberation, or the deliberation will come up at the next meeting. Just anyway. Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Lavoie, we're just going to put this out a couple of weeks till the next meeting. We got 90 days to make a decision. So, but hopefully we got to take the same site up again. So if there's any questions, maybe we can get them answered. But anyway, with all that being said, the vote will come on to continue till the next meeting for deliberations. Roll call vote. Archie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Thank you, everyone. Next thing on the agenda is a letter from, what's the name of this company? J.N. Jewell and Associates LLC. It's a request for comprehensive permit extension, Franklin Ridge Senior Housing Project. It's a project that was approved down behind the high school. In 2019, they construct 60 units of affordable senior housing, of which 54 one-bedrooms and 6 two-bedroom units on 6.5 acres of town-owned land. This is a project that was approved. These people, they go for federal and state money. I think they've been approved. I'm not sure that they actually got the money. Completed its plans for specifications and everything else. And says they're granted they wanted an extension. an additional year in order to allow the town to complete its work and for us to demonstrate to the Mass Department of Housing and livable communities of the town of Franklin's continue to support this project, particularly as it relates to permitting and development of this project. On behalf of John Jewell Associates, look forward to continuing work with the town of Franklin and the Franklin Zoning Board of Appeals on closing the financing for the Franklin Village Senior Housing in the commencement of construction. But anyway, this is common for the projects of this sort. It's the way the first one was built. This is the second one that's going up there. So I'll entertain a motion to continue for 1 year.
Right. So moved.
Motion made.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. All those in favor? Chair votes yes. Archie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay. Last thing on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes from September 26, 2024.
Just check with you guys. Did you have the chance to read the minutes online? I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes for Thursday, September 26, 2024.
Motion made.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote. Joe?
Yes.
Archie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Casey, anything come before the board?
No, Mr. Chairman.
We've got a meeting on the
November 7th.
November 7th. Okay. And it's on 275 Washington Street?
Yes.
Earth removal permit. Okay. Well, maybe we'll see most of the same people. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for adjournment, non-debatable, roll call vote. Joe?
Yes.
Archie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Good night.
Yep, bye-bye.